Hello, my name is Elizabeth DeCoux. My pronouns are she and her, and it's my privilege to welcome you to the weekly virtual worship service of Bugman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, which we sometimes abbreviate BBUUC. You are very welcome here. We're glad you have joined us, and we hope you'll come back and watch more worship services on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to know more about our congregation and its activities and classes and social gatherings virtually, please go to bbuuc.org. If you'd like to know more about Unitarian Universalism, please go to uua.org. Thank you for joining us. We light our chalice today using the words of Reverend John Gibbons. Those words remind us of the origin and history of this symbol. The flaming chalice began as a counterfeit, subversive logo stamped on letters and documents used to rescue Jews, desperate, undocumented immigrants attempting to escape Nazi-occupied Europe. The flaming chalice is not a romantic relic. It is a beacon of sanctuary, sacrifice, and safety. It is subversive to tyranny, an insubordinate tool of resistance to oppression. It burns in you today, and it shines here for you today. Our opening words were written by Jeremy Smith. Seeking justice is not short as a sprint. Seeking justice is not as linear or individualistic as a marathon. Seeking justice is a relay, building on the work of others, making the best effort to set the stage for the future, and running right now with gladness, effectiveness, and faithfulness until the baton is handed over. It's your turn. Will you run for justice? Will you take up the baton? Will you run and not grow weary? Will you walk and not faint? And when you round that final turn and you see a younger, fresher generation that runs just a little differently from you, will you joyfully hand the baton off to them?
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Wonder Box. It is always good to be with you. I wonder what's in our box today. Let's see. A flashlight. I wonder, what do you do with a flashlight? They can help you see in the dark, and they can help you find things when you can't see very well. I wonder what this has to do with our story today. Let's find out. I'm going to share the story of Little Mole Finds Hope, and it's written by Glennis Nellis. So once upon a time, yesterday or maybe tomorrow, there was a little mole. Little Mole was sad. He lay in his burrow deep underground, and he put his head on his paws. Little Mole, whatever is wrong? Asked Mama. I don't know, Mama, but I don't feel good inside. I'm sad. What you need is hope, Mama said. Hope? What is hope? And where do I find it? Asked Little Mole. Come with me, Mama said, as she took hold of Little Mole's paw. Sometimes hope is hiding in the darkness. Sometimes it's hard to see, but it's always there. You just have to find it. Mama led her son gently out of the dark burrow and up towards the light. But on their way out of the tunnel, Mama stopped. "Do you see this little bulb, little mole?" she said. Mama pointed to a bulb squashed in the dark earth. It was brown and wrinkled and lifeless. "It's dead, Mama," said little mole. "No, my dear," Mama whispered softly. "This bulb's not dead. Sometime soon it will feel the warmth of the sun, and it will begin to grow and push its way out of the deep, cold earth. One day, this bulb will become a beautiful yellow daffodil. Close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. Can you see it? Can you see it dancing in the wind?" "Yes, Mama," cried little mole. "I see it. I see it." "That's hope," Mama said. Little mole and Mama reached the top of the burrow where the sun was shining. "Look up, little mole," Mama said. "What do you see?" Little mole looked up. He saw woodpeckers sitting in the trees, but the branches were bare. They stretched out like skeleton bones silhouetted against the sky. "They're dead, Mama," said little mole. "No, my dear," Mama whispered. "The trees are not dead. One day soon buds will appear, and these branches will be covered in bright green leaves. Close your eyes. Can you see them dancing in the wind?" "Yes, Mama," cried little mole. "I see them. I see them." "That is hope," Mama said. Little mole and Mama scurried along the edge of the woods until they came to Mr. Rabbit's garden. An old brown flower pot was lying on its side. Under the rim, something small and shriveled was hanging. Little mole pointed it out and said, "It's dead." And Mama said, "It's not dead, my dear. This chrysalis is not dead. One day soon, the butterfly growing inside will burst out of her shell, and she will spread her wings and fly among the flowers." "Close your eyes," said Mama. "Can you see her dancing in the wind?" "Yes, Mama," cried little mole. "I see her. I see her." "That is hope," Mama said. Little mole and his Mama went home. "I had a wonderful day today, Mama," little mole said happily. "Now I know that there's always hope, even in the darkest places." Mama smiled as she tucked little mole into bed. She pulled his quilt up under his chin, kissed him good night. Little mole closed his eyes and fell fast asleep, dreaming of yellow daffodils, green trees, and beautiful butterflies dancing together in the wind. I love this seemingly simple story. What I love is that Mama Mole shines a light on hope, so little mole can find it. It seems a good example of our third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. Mama accepted that little mole was sad, and instead of trying to fix him, she shared hope with him so that he could begin to experience it for himself. Her hope became contagious. I wonder, how will you share hope with others? And with this, our story is told. Until the next time.
In this congregation, we share each other's joys, sorrows, and concerns, because a joy shared is increased and a sorrow shared is lessened. We light a candle of healing for Stephen M., who is doing well after cataract surgery. We light a candle of joy for Chris and Jim J., who celebrate their wedding anniversary on November 12th. We light candles of celebration for this week's birthdays, with both Brenda P. and Carl S. sharing a birthday on November 11th. Eric S. has his special day on November 12th. Happy birthday to each of you. As we come to the end of a challenging week of pandemic and election stress, we light a candle of our hope and vision for a just and inclusive society. We light a candle for Veterans Day on November 11th in honor and appreciation of our siblings who have served in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Navy, and Marines. Thank you to all who served, whatever their role, wherever their service took them. Thank you to those whose service was brief and to those who made a career of their service. We light a final candle for those important joys and concerns which remain unspoken in our hearts. Although our building is closed, the work of this church goes on, and we depend on your pledges to pay the bills, which continue to arrive regardless of the pandemic. You can also make a virtual offering by clicking on the link in the comments section of this video. In the month of November, these virtual offerings support BBUUC's Rainbow Welcoming Ministry, which encourages recognition of, acceptance of, and respect for LGBTQ+ people. We are grateful for whatever you can give.
Good morning, I'm Reverend Carmen Emerson. I'm happy to be with you on this Sunday morning, although the filming, of course, is taking place before Sunday morning, which means we enter this time together with a lot of uncertainty. And so I feel compelled to offer a simple message of hope and resilience this morning, but especially hope. For those of you who don't know me, I do serve as the affiliated community minister for Buckman Bridge, which means that my ministry is mostly out in the community, and at this time that means that I am a chaplain resident at Baptist Medical Center on the palliative care team, offering chaplaincy to those who've entered palliative care. But I do serve as affiliated community minister for Buckman Bridge. It is my privilege and pleasure to do that, and I am happy again to be with you this morning. I want to begin by sharing two quick stories with you. Both stories are true and both relate to things that happened in World War II and pieces of bread. The first story is from a book called Sleeping with Bread. During the bombing raids of World War II, many children were left homeless and hungry, orphaned. The fortunate ones were rescued and placed in refugee camps, but even then, even despite all the good care that they were receiving, they had a hard time sleeping at night. They had a hard time resting and relaxing enough to get good sleep overnight. And so finally, somebody hit upon the idea of why don't we give them a piece of bread to sleep with when they go to bed at night? And so they would tuck the children in and give them, a piece of bread so that they could have that to sleep with. And it made the difference. The children knew, today I ate, and tomorrow I have this piece of bread just in case tomorrow I will eat again. I will not go hungry. The gift of a piece of bread. The second story is from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I suspect many of you may be familiar with that book with Viktor Frankl, who was in the concentration camps during World War II. And he writes about his fellow prisoners who would move through the huts in the camps. All of them were starving. All of them were living in these horrible, horrific, harsh conditions, starving, cold. And he writes about the men who would walk through those camps and give their last piece of bread away to another person. And he talks about this as the last of the human freedoms, the ability to make a choice about who you are going to be in dire circumstance. The last of the human freedoms is to still make a choice about who is the person that I'm going to be? How am I going to make a way for my work in the world for myself in the way that reflects who I am as a human being? He says, it was a decision which determined whether or not you would submit to those powers which threatened to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom. So one thing was about receiving the gift of bread, the first story, and the second story is about offering a piece of bread. And I just ask you to keep those in the back of your mind as we move through this sermon this morning. So again, in this time of keeping one another safe from COVID, it is an interesting thing to be recording this service in time for all the technical pieces to be put into place for Sunday morning, and yet to be recording without knowing with electoral college certainty who will be the next president of the United States. Waiting for certainty can be hard, especially when we are exhausted and grieving and just want some kind of relief. I'm going to hold up a graphic for you. This is a very low-tech moment in this sermon, but I'm going to hold up a graphic for you. I hope you can see it. It shows grief, because I think we're grieving for 1,000 different things. It shows grief in two different ways. It shows grief as a very clean, linear progression. Here's the grief as a very clean, linear progression from loss and hurt of loss to adjustment to loss. And then there is this chaotic progression in the stages of grief. Same stages, all the same points on the continuum, except that we know in real life, rarely do things move this smoothly and simply. So I myself am feeling grief more in this way. And I notice, especially on this grid, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but there's a lot of back and forth between fear and hope. There's a lot of back and forth between fear and hope, and frankly, I think that's how a lot of us are experiencing uncertain times right now. We are exhausted, we are grieving losses, we are feeling fear because the values for which we hold reverence, the democracy that we depend on, the people whom we cherish are in danger. There's a simple question that captures the overall threat of this time. The threat that, as chaplains say, is at the heart of the matter, the heart of our exhaustion and our losses, our grief and our fears. And that question is, what if hate trumps love? What if hate trumps love? This should have been a landslide. How could people we love, people who profess to love us, not understand what is at stake, the many direct harms that another 4 years of this administration could mean to us personally, to people we love, to our democracy, to our laws, to our ideals. It's all under threat, and we are grieving that what should be so obvious apparently is not. If it could be true that that hate trumps love, then what do I hold sacred? What will hold me steady? And can I even afford to risk being hopeful? 2 social media posts have been especially meaningful to me as I live with these questions. One post is an illustration by artist Angie King. It depicts a woman and a girl standing beside each other. The woman has her arms around the girl, and the girl begins their conversation with this question: but what if they lose? Then we keep fighting for the rights of all people, the woman answers. And if they win, asks the child. Oh, dear girl, says her mother, it's the same answer. We know that working for the rights of all people must continue because what we have learned this year, according to one very harsh online assessment and critique, is that this was not an election. It was, quote, a survey on just how much this country loves racism. And too many people check the box for very satisfied. If that statement makes you uncomfortable, I encourage you to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the people in your life who dwell in the margins. Have a conversation with the people in your life who are people of color from the LGBTQ community, who have any of those, quote, isms that have become acceptable and pathologically fashionable to disparage and ridicule over the last 4 years, and to judge. Ask how they are threatened every day by institutionalized and systemic oppressions. Ask how they are threatened by policies intended to dehumanize people in order to erode their rights. Frankly, we are all threatened by policies that dehumanize anyone. Ask them those questions. What is your experience? And then remember the wisdom of the artist Angie King. Win or lose, our work is the same. Keep fighting for the rights of all people. The second media post that's been helpful to me was written by a ministerial colleague, Kendall Gibbons, after the 2016 presidential election, and I find it as relevant now as it was 4 years ago, if not more so. Kendall writes, very frankly, "It sucks when our values are repudiated by the larger culture, but they are our values even when they don't prevail. They are our values even when they don't prevail. That's why we go to the trouble of nurturing covenantal communities to be the vessel for them, to be the vessel for these values that we hold dear. So hold this space, dear ones." Kendall writes, "Hold this space, dear ones." Holding the space is a critical shared ministry for us. As Unitarian Universalists, we gather Sunday after Sunday to hold the space, to nurture our covenantal communities, to take our covenant seriously so that we can know ourselves and know one another better, to get clear about the ways that we will be compassionate, courageous people of faith whose values are worth articulating clearly and taking into our communities as we fight for the rights of all people. Our recent UU the Vote effort is an example of holding the space also, and I just want to personally thank everyone in the congregation who engaged in that effort so that we have a chance to defend and to expand the rights of all people. We hold the space too because we need time with people with whom we can be at ease, people with whom we can share comfort when we're grieving and hope when we are afraid. Martin Luther King counseled once that we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Let me repeat that. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Keeping faith with infinite hope seems almost impossible right now, in the same way that calls for compassion for those who've behaved so very badly feels too generous in this moment. I know we'll get there. I know we will, because that's who we are. As a person of faith, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I am determined to keep infinite faith with hope because I understand its power. Authoritarian leaders, real or fictional or aspiring, lament that hope is a dangerous thing because hope trumps fear. Hope trumps fear. Holding this space and keeping faith with infinite hope requires something definitive from us, and the first is understanding that neither of those endeavors is a solo endeavor. Both are shared ministries between and among us, just like the bread that was offered to refugee children and the bread offered from one prisoner to another in harsh and hopeless conditions. We must offer hope to one another as comfort in times of grief, as sustenance in times of endeavor, and as affirmation of the inner freedom of choice that we UUs might name as the worth and dignity inherent in every human being. Hope is different from wishful thinking. Hope is different from wishful thinking or a convenient feeling. Please understand that. Hope is something different. As I've described hope here, as I use hope here, I invite us into a shared ministry of holding the space and keeping faith with infinite hope by understanding that hope is a thing, a living, sustaining thing that requires our time, our attention, and our fierce efforts to help it thrive so that it may rout the fears used in attempts to control and manipulate people. As we know, there are people in this world who are masters at using fear to control and to manipulate. We're so overwhelmed, I want to offer a simple way to do this. I think we're holding so much in head and heart and spirit that I want to be clear about this, and so I hope this does come across as clear to you. Holding space and keeping keeping faith with infinite hope require us to be able to say who we are as religious people in order that we may send up the beacon to those who are looking for people like us, people who may share our Unitarian Universalist values. So how do we do this? How do we hold the space and keep faith with infinite hope? By being articulate about who we are as a religious people and what our values are. So here's a simple thing. Learn the mission of our congregation. Learn the mission of our church. It is, as many have heard me say, it is our guiding star. It is why we are in the business of being a church together. Our covenant describes the way we're committing to being in relationship with one another as we work to fulfill the mission of our congregation. That's the first thing. Get clear about who we are and why we're doing what we do. The second thing that you could do is develop a spiritual practice that incorporates reflection on our 7 principles and our 6 wisdom sources. Our principles and our sources reflect our ethics, our values, and our theological groundings. They're what move us beyond being a social club of well-intentioned people and into a religious community of free thinkers, fierce lovers of freedom. Deepening your understanding of the principles and sources can help you articulate your values, our values, in ways that serve as an affirmation and an invitation to others looking for safe space held sacred by religious communities of courage and compassion, looking for people who share their values, people with whom they can cast their lot of hope. Finally, holding space and keeping faith with infinite hope require us to be vulnerable. This is the hardest thing for us. They require us to be vulnerable, to risk vulnerability with one another, knowing that there will be times when we are in need of an offering of hope from another person. We are in need of receiving that piece of bread. Like the children, we need to receive the piece of bread. There are other times when people are going to need such an offering from us, like the men in the camps. We want to be able to give away that piece of bread, even though we're tempted to hoard it, to hang on to it for ourselves. It's the kind of thing that rots if we hoard it. You have to give it away. And there are going to be times when we are in need of receiving that gift of bread, that gift of hope from another person. Here's the thing to remember. Being vulnerable creates an opportunity for connection, deep connection for humanity. And we need that more than ever right now. There are times when we need to receive the gift of hope, times when we're asked to offer a gift of hope, and both of those things will serve our heart and spirits and souls very well. They strengthen us. It's that thing like love, you give it away and it doesn't dissipate, it grows stronger. And the same is true for hope and keeping infinite faith with hope. Whatever that little piece of bread is for you, wherever you find your hope or tend your hope, it's going to be something different for each one of us. Find your piece of bread, find your piece of hope. Hold it close when you need to, but give it away when you need to, and give it away when others need it from you. Receive it with gratitude and grace when shared with you by others, and offer it with generous conviction when you are called to share it with others. Engaged in the shared ministries that make a difference in a time when a difference really, really needs to be made. Help each other hold the space. Help each other keep faith with infinite hope, sustaining one another for the work to which our congregation is called, the work of expanding and defending rights for all people. This theological, hopeful work, and we are capable of it. May it be so, and may we be so. Blessed be friends. Amen.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with
finish our chalice with these words of Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the moral universe is long, and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and in the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.